Movies have been a central part of my creative development since I knew what they were. Ever since childhood, if I wasn't lost in one of my own little worlds, then I was lost in some world I saw on the screen. My work now has a strong 90s feel. The movies I saw back then greatly informed my work now. Like the strong visuals, the strong themes they had, the strong characters, all those elements that I saw back then, I very much try to emulate now. I appreciate superficiality just as much as I appreciate subtlety and nuance, and I absolutely feel there are places for both, even in the same work. A paper-thin character can still be a strong character. A superficial action scene can have profound effect if done well. A lot of people like to cast superficial action movies off, just as simple, not worthy of their time. But those people haven't seen The Raid. They haven't seen Dread. I enjoyed John Wick 3 just as much as I enjoyed Blue is the Warmest Color. You know, those movies are polar opposite films from completely opposite ends of the spectrum, but I hold them in the same regard, just in different mindsets. I try to gain a blend of that in my own work. Whether I'm actually successful or not, it remains to be, well, that's in the eye of the beholder, but that's my goal. One movie that, from the superficial end of the spectrum, that very much stands as a foundational pillar in my creative development is Top Gun. I came across that in the video store back when I was about 7 years old. I rented it, brought it home, opened the case, took the tape out, put it in the VCR, pressed play, and this happened. That was a punch in the face for everyone, not just me. Because think about it from the perspective of 1986. People were certainly aware of aircraft carriers through the Vietnam War, but the footage was all washed out, newsreel footage on a small screen. They'd never seen it presented full widescreen like that, full rich color, a stereo sound. And me, being so young, that was my introduction to any of it. I didn't know carriers were a thing. I didn't know that was a thing. So I went from nothing to this. That 4-second shot blew this little 7-year-old's mind. The way that thing drops down and is slung off the end of the deck, the power of it, the steel, most importantly, the sound. It certainly helped to have some seriously kickin' music on it as well. Looking back on it now, I am really appreciating just how good an opening sequence that is. The director, Tony Scott, definitely knew what the subject matter was. When approaching a jet fighter movie, you'd think that jet fighters would be the focus. But when you're on an aircraft carrier, all the action is happening on deck, so that's obviously where he was laying the focus point. So that opening sequence he absolutely nailed, I think. As for the rest of the movie, yeah, you know, I am a strong character guy, and I don't remember liking any of the characters in that movie. Even back in childhood, I remember not liking them. Like, I didn't think they were cool. I didn't want to be any of them. I just wanted to get back to the jet fighters. That opening sequence, though, I had running over and over in my mind for decades. I was building aircraft models, I was drawing jet fighters, I had all these aircraft fact books that I still have today. I really wanted to be a combat pilot, that was all I could think of back then. I even took a flight lesson once when I was a teen. I didn't want to be playing volleyball or pulling some elaborate move with my bros or whatever in order to get some girl's number. You know, fuck all that. No, I wanted to be in a jet fighter in a combat environment. One could say I was on that highway to the danger zone. But this is Australia. Whereas in the US, any backwater cleaters can jump in a F-22 and do a flyover of a college football game. Here we have like 20 planes. And also I'm dyslexic, so my academic record is 0. Like, it just was not happening. In hindsight, it was absolutely for the best. My mind is too explorative, and the military life just would not suit me at all. I absolutely do get the whole discipline equals freedom thing. Thank you, Jocko Willink. I even agree with it. It's just the military life ain't for me.
Good.
In fact, nowadays I am actually quite anti-war. Well, I'm anti-war profiteering. That's what I am. I was 21 in 9/11. I was 23, 23 for the Iraq War invasion, and I paid very close attention to all the corrupt Reconstruction deals, the Halliburton Cheney thing, the Blackwater cover-ups, the Monsanto deals, the using of the National Guard, America's part-time domestic defense force, using them as deploying them overseas to play occupational force in a foreign country in order to cover all those corrupt Reconstruction profiteering deals. Like, it was absolutely disgusting. Like, those people, they lost their jobs, they lost their homes. I'm talking the Americans. The Iraqis got it, 1,000-fold, but they're just the Americans alone. The poor National Guard part-timers, they lost everything they had. If they got wounded, they were screwed. And that's if they came home at all, So it's all these themes that I write about today in my own work. And Top Gun did that. Top Gun was the first step that put it all into my mind, put that interest in my mind. So Top Gun absolutely killed the box office back in 1986 and changed the direction of this frail, meek little kid with its opening moments of awesome. Now, jump ahead 30 years. I got to admit, I wasn't paying any attention to this movie. I knew it was taking place, and I like modern-day Tom Cruise films, but it didn't really flicker an interest at all. The day the trailer dropped, I watched it on my phone, and in a small little tiny screen, and it was just like, okay, the new Top Gun film. I watched it, and it looked like it had some cool aerial footage in it and things like that. But then I admit the nostalgia scenes actually made me cringe. I just really hate this modern era of just remaking everything from the 80s and 90s. I mean, I don't even know who they make it for. Like, they're not making it for the millennials. I mean, I don't even know if millennials go to watch movies anymore in the cinemas, but they're obviously making it for us, but we've already seen it, so I don't get who they're making it for. Like, if you're making Star Wars Episode 7, as in to be watched immediately after Episode 6, why are you retelling Episode 4? We just saw that like 6 hours ago. Make something new. I don't get what they're doing here. Now, in this particular case of Top Gun, it actually does look like a genuine sequel. Even in case of the nostalgia scenes, they could work actually as a metaphor in the sense that Maverick has not progressed, because that's the theme of the trailer. Maverick has not progressed, and they might be showing those scenes as a symbol of that. He's still doing the same thing day in, day out. That works for me. So, with that in mind, a few hours later, I watched it again on my laptop, full screen, and I got to see all the aerial scenes with the sound and everything, and I had running over in my mind, this is a modern day Tom Cruise movie, and I suddenly realized, oh, hang on, this might actually be fucking awesome. So I watched it a few times more, and I naturally started picking out all the little, details and everything like that, and my mind started ticking over, wondering what they were doing narratively, and also like how they actually went about shooting these scenes. That's what this video is about. Now, I am completely guessing on all of this. I am still, however, going to give a pseudo-spoilers warning because I might actually get some of it right. I am also attempting to pull back the production veil a bit, and that might kill the magic for a few people, so that I'm spoilers warning for that. For people who have not seen the trailer, I will play it now, and because my actual analysis I will be doing non-chronologically, so I'll play through it now, and well, here it is. See, good cinematography already.
30 plus years of service. Combat medals, citations. Only man to shoot down 3 enemy planes in the last 40 years. Yet you can't get a promotion, you won't retire. Despite your best efforts, you refuse to die.
They've really worked out all the shots. Fantastic.
You should be at least a 2-star admiral by now. Yet here you are. Captain. Why is that?
It's one of life's mysteries, sir.
See, how is that not going to be cool? Come on.
The end is inevitable, Maverick. Your kind is headed for extinction.
Maybe so, sir. But not today.
And a totally fake F-14 at the end there. And I actually want to... Actually, no, I won't start there. First, I want to duck back to this shot here for a special mention. How much fun is every single person in that shot having in that moment? Take a time to really think about that. This dude right here, I will straight out guarantee the very reason he is in that cockpit is because of this guy right here. He saw Top Gun as a kid and said, that's me. And now he's flying a strike mission literally with Captain Pete Maverick Mitchell in the lead. Like, that's not Tom Cruise there. That's actually Maverick. This guy must be grinning mad right now. I love it. Anyway, I just wanted to acknowledge that because I just think it's awesome. So, back to the F-14. I am expecting this shot won't actually be in the movie. I think it's actually just been made for the trailer. I think it's pretty safe to say that every single plane we see in this movie is going to be real. This is like one of those 90s extreme sports videos you used to get about, like, you know, motocross or whatever. It's just that this one's for aircraft. The whole point of this thing is the real aircraft. That last shot, however, neither looks or sounds real to me. Like, they seem to be able to control the motion blur a little too precisely here. Like, it's too in focus. There's no wind or atmospheric noise on the aircraft's shoulders there. Also, just the line of travel itself just doesn't look quite right for me. The big one, though, is that the camera is stationary. The platform is moving slightly, so the shot would have been taken by a helicopter, but there's no turbulent disturbance whatsoever in that when that massive F-14 hammers past. Now, yes, you can absolutely stabilize footage, and the camera would be on a gimbal, but the gimbal would be getting hit with the same jet blast as the helicopter. So even if you did stabilize that footage, the F-14 itself would be jumping around and nowhere near as clear as that. So I'm not quite buying that's a real shot. Now, that being said, they actually did get an F-14 for this movie. They literally brought it out of a museum, got it flying again, and even had it doing carrier traps. Apparently, in one of those traps, they use arrestor nets. So when an emergency landing is needed, they pull out these nets and physically catch the aircraft. So there is an emergency landing scene in this movie involving an F-14. So this brings me to the story setup. In this trailer, Maverick is now a test pilot. We can see this through a few clues. The first clue is that he is flying low over a wide open expanse of American desert, probably somewhere in either California or Nevada. That is a testing ground. He is watching a timer and then suddenly jerking upwards as if to avoid something despite there actually being nothing there to avoid. He is practicing a move. He's developing some tactic, and it's a dangerous one because it's, Maverick, and that's the point. So what is he testing for? I have a theory on that, but I'll get to it at the end of the video. Another clue is the collar he has in this scene here with Ed Harris. That is not a regular flight suit. That is a high-altitude atmospheric pressure suit like what a old U-2 or SR-71 pilot would have worn back in the day. We see it again here with the helmet locked in. So that tells me experimental aircraft, which makes the case for him being stationed at Skunk Works in California, or even Area 51 in Nevada. I'm guessing California because that would allow for the ocean scenes we see here. There is also apparently an F-35 featured in this movie, so that's Skunk Works. It's probably an F-35 that he's sitting in here. It would not have been hard for them to get an F-35 into this movie. Lord knows that product needs a serious PR boost at the moment. Lockheed Martin probably funded half this film. There's probably a Church of Scientology right in the middle of Skunk Works right now. But perhaps the most devious clue of all that reveals how Maverick is now a test pilot is that it says test pilot right there on the plaque. So why is he a test pilot now? Why did he leave carrier operations? Why has he stagnated for 30 years despite being the most effective weapon in the US arsenal? That emergency carrier trap of an F-14. Is that a flashback scene? Did something go wrong? We see a military funeral shot in this trailer. So who died? Did Maverick perhaps get a little too maverick and cook himself another goose? Has the weight of now losing 2 co-pilots just gotten too much for him, so he transferred it over to test piloting where he is now only risking himself? That would explain the Ed Harris lines in the beginning. Maverick doesn't want to advance. He is just doing the same thing day in, day out, and pulling more and more risky experiments, one of which probably landed him in that office for that scene. So the trailer then rolls on through a heap of snapshots where we see all the throwback scenes, the nostalgia scenes. Considering they were the most cringy, boring parts of the first movie, I really hope they don't dwell on them for this one. I'm guessing they won't. I'm hoping that they are going to be used as a device to show that Pete Mitchell has not advanced. Another take could be that Maverick is sitting at that bar watching a new generation of pilots upholding the bar's tradition that he and his generation began 30 years before. And that's probably the scene where Jennifer Connelly is going to come in because she is apparently playing a single mother who owns that bar. I'm thinking that what happens is that through a relationship with her and in meeting her son, Maverick starts to get a bit of a spark back. He starts to get a bit of zest for life. And then something on the geopolitical stage happens and he is personally requested to return to carrier operations. Why? Because he has been testing a certain risky maneuver which happens to be exactly what Strategic Command needs right now. Val Kilmer is in this movie. So maybe Iceman himself is the one to come back and personally request his return. So, he agrees to maybe be an advisor at first, and John Hamm might be the operational CEO who does not like Maverick and his Maverick ways. Maybe he was linked to Maverick's second dead co-pilot somehow. I don't know, we'll see what happens. But either way, I think he's going to be the antagonist purely by the way he's walking around like that. So they start the training, but the younger pilots aren't getting this risky technique right. The operation is fracturing, so Captain Pete Maverick Mitchell has to take the lead. But he doesn't want to be responsible for anyone else. He'll get these kids killed. He volunteers to do it himself, but that's not going to happen. The mission is too critical. He also might have trouble in his relationship with Jennifer Connelly. He's just too stagnant, too locked in his ways. Maybe they might use some metaphorical device like maybe he refuses to try some new craft beer or something. He just wants to stick to his bud. Either way, it all comes down to him needing to move on. But Iceman comes to give him some wise words, and the next scene is a wide shot of the carrier. Maverick is back. He leads the team in to hit the target in a particular country that I will get into in a minute, but the operation gets into trouble with the arrival of the enemy air force of perhaps MiG-29s. I'll get to that as well. It's looking bad for our heroes. The time is ticking down, but the miraculous F-35 Flying Dream swoops in at the last moment to save the day, thus proving the hefty development budget was worth it all along. Maverick then returns to California. He has brought everyone back safe. He maybe goes back to the bar to see Jennifer Connelly, and maybe he tries something new. Credits. So that is my narrative prediction for how this film will go. Now we'll get to what this operation is that he's doing. In the first movie, there was a stricken tanker threatening to drift into hostile waters. There was a rescue operation going on, and Maverick and Iceman and their crew were flying an escort for that rescue mission. They got intercepted by a country which was totally not the Soviet Union, and have a dogfight with the fabled black MiG-28s. Now, there is a chance there won't actually be any geopolitical conflict at all. There is a way you could do that and still have a good movie. I'm guessing, however, there will be. The mission that Maverick goes on, though, will not be an interception mission. They won't be set for any dogfights. It is a strike mission that they are doing. Now, this is the first clue here. The squadron is very close to the water and they are packed in tight. That is almost certainly to make for a better cinematic shot, but to go with a narrative reason, they are reducing radar signature. You see it again here, where they're still sticking low and making an approach by the river. The next clue is the aircraft payload. Those aircraft are all packing heat and they've got fuel tanks, so that is a long-range mission. But looking at the munitions themselves, those are AIM-9 Sidewinders. They are close-range air-to-air missiles, and there's only 2 per plane. That is not enough for an air interception. And just as a side note, Maverick is actually wearing the wrong helmet for those missiles. They've got these special weird-looking, mutant-looking head thing, which it's got a laser targeter in it, so they can look down and target a plane and fire and it'll go down or whatever. They look like crap though, so if I was directing this film, I would totally go with Maverick's helmet as well. Like, they made the right decision here. Now, these ones under the wings, they're not missiles. These are GBU-24 paveways, which is a guided bomb. I thought initially that paveways had a different nose cap on them, but it turns out I was getting it mixed up with like an older version. I was thinking about a 1 or a 2. This is a paveway 3. Now, there is a reason why I'm getting into this geeky shit right now. The initial confusion actually triggered me onto something. One key feature of that bomb is that it has a very large lens cap on it. And a very large lens cap is very handy if you are making an aviation movie. Those paveways are cameras. Back in the 80s, for the first movie, Paramount Pictures commissioned Grumman, the makers of the F-14, to build custom camera pods to fit onto the wing mounts in order for them to get these aerial shots. And look at this. They've simply commissioned Raytheon to do the same thing. Now, they're not using those pods for this shot. They're using a naked camera on a mount here. But that view, and probably direct forward shots and whatever, are what they're going to be capturing with those cameras, and it should look awesome, I think. So to get back to the narrative, those are bombs the aircraft are carrying, and all of them are carrying them. So there is no dogfighting planned here, at least narratively. It is a strike mission. It is a long-range strike mission on a ground target. Now, this does not mean that there will be no dogfighting in this movie. It is a Top Gun movie after all. But the mission in the narrative is not a interception mission. It is a strike mission. Okay, so the final operation we see takes place somewhere in Arctic-like conditions. If there is indeed a geopolitical conflict in this film, then snow-capped mountains could mean either Russia or North Korea. I seriously doubt it's going to be Russia. The original movie, they completely avoided naming the Soviet Union. They absolutely will not name Russia in today's political climate. Also, in all likelihood, there will be some aerial threat in this movie, and if you're going with Russia, then the plane that you have to go with is the Su-35. In all reality, in that situation, with the 4 F-18s locked to a low-level, thin line of attack, and the Su-35 getting the jump on them in its own backyard, I'm actually giving it to the Russian. And I mean, that one plane will take out the 4 F-18s in about 5 seconds. And I'm not kidding. Like, literally, the whole Russian aerial doctrine, the Russian aircraft, they're made for that very thing. In any other situation, it's a different matter. But in that particular situation, with those aircraft, in that situation, it ain't gonna happen. So Russia is not a very wise decision for this movie, especially when you have the alternative in North Korea, whose main aircraft is the MiG-29. The US has MiG-29s. They bought 20 of them during the fall of the Soviet Union when they were trying to prevent them falling into the hands of Iran. The first movie took US F-5 Tigers, painted them black, put the pilots in black suits with red stars and called them the MiG-28. What I am hoping for the most, please do this, is that with this movie, the country will be a North Korea clone which will have black MiG-29s. If they do that, I will punch the fucking air. So, why are they hitting this country that is totally not going to be North Korea? Let's jump back to the first scene of the trailer to find out. We know Maverick is a test pilot. He is flying in very low, letting a clock run down almost to 0 before yanking the stick back and gunning upwards. By the way, no pilot in his right mind would ever yank the stick back that hard. It's probably suicide, but Hollywood. My take is that Pete Maverick Mitchell is going to win the day by shooting womp rats in Beggars Canyon. He is testing an extreme close quarter munitions release, waiting till the very last moment before releasing the bomb in order to needle it down a horizontal entryway of a bunker dug deep into a mountain. The reason he is yanking the stick back like that is because he is trying to avoid the hypothetical mountainside. Now, what could be so critical to make the US government take such a huge diplomatic risk? A broken arrow. A rogue nuclear weapon. And who happens to have nuclear test facilities buried deep within snow-capped mountains? The black and red starred country of Not NK. Not NK has collapsed, and the new crazy rogue general now has access to the nukes contained in that facility. The US president, who will absolutely be referred to as POTUS, will demand the facility be taken out immediately. So Maverick has to hit the facility using that extreme close quarter weapons release, and, what's more, they're going to have to worry about the black MiG-29s which race to the defense. It'll come right down to the wire, everyone will miss their bombs, but the F-35 will clear the air, and Maverick will make one last try and save the day. So that is my prediction. We'll see how it goes. Now we'll get on to the production questions. I've seen a few people do reaction videos to this trailer, and the most common question I hear people asking is Tom Cruise flying that plane? We all know Tom Cruise does his own stunts now. The moment he started producing his own films, he became cool again, and all the weird cult shit on Earth ain't gonna dampen that, because he rocks. But is he flying that F-18? No, he's not. He is absolutely in that pilot seat, in the air, with that aircraft making those moves. Like, there is no CG being used here. But that F-18 is a tandem seater. You can tell by the skirts here flanking the cockpit, they're different on a single-seater F-18. He is also shaded a little too much in some of these shots, as if a pilot seat and a camera rig is blocking his forward view. He also looks a little too much out to the side here, which to me is a subconscious thing, because he's got like a wall right in front of him, so naturally anchors more outwards towards the light. And most of all, the camera is simply positioned too high. If that was a single-seater, the camera would be through the glass. A civilian can't just fly a military jet. You need all sorts of patches and clearances, even just to get into a trainer, let alone an F-18, let alone an active F-18 launching from a carrier. Like, it just ain't gonna happen. What they've done is set up forward cameras beside the lead pilot seat and rearward cameras facing back, and both Tom and the military pilot in front are wearing the iconic Maverick helmet. That way they can sync the shots. The aircraft makes a sharp bank, and they can still switch between forward and back facing views of Maverick, and we're seeing the same angles, the same scenery, the wind collar, all that awesome stuff. In fact, they actually did that for the first film as well, but the footage they got was too low quality, so they couldn't use it in the film. Now they can actually do it at high quality, so it's going to be awesome. So Tom is absolutely in that aircraft doing that shit for real. The scenes are real. The G-forces are real. The audio is real. It's going to be great, I think. I'm seeing this movie big screen, center of the cinema, just for that alone. Now, it is very expensive to have 4 F-18s and a carrier operational in your movie. So my take is that this entire final operation sequence would have been shot in one flight. The way I see it is that they probably had a concept down in a script form, and they took that to the Navy, and the Navy pilots referred them to a run they probably did up in like Alaska or someplace. They probably took a private plane up there with cameras set up, and they made the run through a few times, probably took a lot of scouted out camera positions from ground level, took a whole heap of shots, brought all that footage back, reworked the scene for the key shots and moments. Then they probably took that back to the Navy. The Navy then reworked it and worked out a final actual mission plan for their squadron themselves. They then probably would have made singular runs in F-18s with the camera rigs set up and all that in order to try different things and to really sort of work out the choreography of the shot. The actors then arrive on the carrier in maybe the week or so before the mission in order to get all like the non-flight scenes done, and probably like a few single flights for particular scenes. I don't know, but we'll see what they are in the movie. So mission day arrives. Narratively, Maverick is flying a single-seater. So these 2 aircraft here will be playing the part of his aircraft for external shots. Tom Cruise, though, is in the second seat of the mission leader in order to get both like interiors and rear view shots of the squadron. So in the story, there are going to be 3 single-seaters, 1 tandem-seater. Their official explanation will be that the tandem-seater is for like operational support or situational awareness, stuff like that. In reality, though, there will actually be 2 of each. So why do they need 2? I am willing to bet there is going to be another actor doing real-life interiors in this scene, and my money is on this character, Phoenix. And Phoenix is played by a young woman named Monica Barbaro, who, might I add, happens to be exactly my type. It seems pretty safe to say that this movie has been made personally for me. I appreciate that, Paramount Pictures. You have officially gotten my money. As for the characters being played by these 2 pilots here, they might actually have cameras on them, but just not have any lines. So we could actually have single-seat pilot views in this, but the actual dialogue and narrative will be focused between Maverick and Phoenix. So that's how I think this will all go down. However, there is a side note. Tom Cruise actually does have his pilot license, and he personally owns a P-51 Mustang. He owns the F-18 of the mid-1940s. And look at this. That is a P-51 Mustang right there. It's got the D-Day invasion stripes on it and everything, and that's probably Tom Cruise's very own craft. So I can almost guarantee that we're going to have a scene in this where Maverick takes a joy flight in that old warbird, and it's absolutely going to be Tom Cruise flying, and I think that's awesome. All in all, to wrap this up, I actually think this movie is going to be great. I am seeing this in VMAX at least, if not IMAX. I just don't like the IMAX theatre here. So VMAX at least, I'll be sitting middle of the theatre, slightly forward to get the full experience, because that's what this movie is all about. Hopefully the nostalgia scenes won't get in the way too much, but if it means the inclusion of black MiG-29s, in that case I am all for it. I will do a follow-up video after I see this film to see how much I got right. If that sounds interesting to you, then, subscribe and do all that type of stuff. If you want to support me, you can, head up my Patreon, you can check out my books, or maybe even my Black MiG brand of merchandise, which I have just launched on my site. In the meantime, I'll be making videos on all sorts of different themes and whatever. If you have any suggestions, leave a suggestion in the comments, and I'll see what I can do. In the meantime, I'll see you around.